Hey guys, tonight we're tiptoeing through history's snowy backyard to uncover a moment more unexpected than your aunt's fruitcake. The 1914 Christmas Truce during World War I. Not the sentimental Hallmark special you imagine, but a time when men paused their mud-soaked, war-torn shenanigans to, believe it or not, sing carols, swap chocolates and play a friendly game of soccer. I mean, if you can find any humour while dodging bullets, can you really call it war? So before you settle in, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy what I create here. Leave a comment letting me know where you're tuning in from and what bizarre hour it is for you. Somehow it's always 3 AM somewhere, right? Now dim those lights, turn on a fan for that soft humming ambiance and get comfy. An imaginary trench awaits. Let's consider for a moment. Have you ever wondered what it was like to be stuck in a muddy foxhole listening to distant carols in the dead of winter? Were soldiers really throwing snowballs at each other while plotting their next strategic manoeuvre? What did they do with their last tin of beans when faced with a friendly football match? Did they print temporary ceasefires on official-looking letterhead? And now, congratulations. You've just woken up in a soggy trench in Belgium. It's December 25th, 1914, and you're wondering if that's a church bell or just a really optimistic mortar shell in the distance. Good luck. You're knee-deep in mud that smells like despair. Congratulations. You've managed to slip into a trench undeniably more claustrophobic than your last family Thanksgiving dinner. Around you, soldiers are bundled like poorly wrapped sausages, nursing frostbite and foul moods. Perfectly primed for a Christmas miracle, right? The walls of your soggy earthen dugout are barely holding up, as if they're trying to protect your sanity from the outside world and failing miserably. Above, the sky hangs heavy like a grey quilt that hasn't been washed since the last century. Picture this. It's December, and the biting cold has turned the air crisp enough to slice through. The noise of artillery shells makes for an intriguing war soundtrack, delivering an odd combination of suspense and absurdity. You overhear one soldier muttering that their trench is like the world's worst swimming pool. You have to hand it to them. At least they're trying to find humour in this muddy hell. The daily grind is unbearable. You wake to the sound of men coughing, sniffling, and the occasional groan as another pair of feet gets stuck in the muck. And what do you get for breakfast? Imagine peeling open a tin of mystery meat that looks suspiciously like last week's leftovers, and that's before you take a moment to ponder where that meat even came from. If you squint hard enough, you might just call it a gourmet meal, if gourmet meant barely identifiable and heavily salted. But it's not all dismal. The laughter that erupts over a drawn-out game of cards, for instance, somehow momentarily erases the reality of trench life. Cards become tokens of hope, thin sheets of camaraderie laid down over the cold dirt. The banter surrounding bad hands is enough to transform faces that have grown far too serious. You might even find yourself chiming in, laughing about the one time Bert tripped over his own feet while charging up the hill, until you remember that hill was also covered in barbed wire. As Christmas approaches, there's a strange yearning in the air, the kind of nostalgia that brings everyone's memories flooding back, of warm homes, bustling kitchens, and the smell of freshly baked goods. Soldiers try to muster these fond memories between the rumbles of shell fire. The irony of it all is that you might end up dreaming of your Aunt Mabel's infamous fruitcake, while leaning against a trench wall damp enough to water a garden. And then, just when it seems like the war is extending its claws deeper into the trenches, something extraordinary happens. The sound of carols begins to waft through the air, not from tinny radios but from soldiers' lips. At first, it feels utterly absurd. You look to your neighbour, Carl, who's trying to harmonise with the guy from the German trench nearby. But like any good spirit would, laughter tugs at your belly, and before you know it, you're singing along too, unbelievably bonding with those bickering guys you've been shooting at all this time. You'll hear Silent Night morph into an oddly melodic exchange, the frozen ground trembling under the weight of music as soldiers, who were once embroiled in the chaos of enemy fire, now find themselves battling over who can hit the highest note. In this moment, war becomes a secondary character in the story, a backdrop that only serves to highlight the absurdity of comrade show. Wasting no time, someone starts a snowball fight, because what better way to keep the Christmas spirit alive than pelting your perceived enemy with frosty projectiles? It's remarkable how, amid the stench of sweat and gunpowder, men can find the will to laugh, still strapped in layers of wool that scratch and itch as they run about like excited kids. "Take that, Fritz," you hear one soldier shout between laughs. Snowballs become proof that Christmas is possible even amid war, and the trench becomes not a grave, but a stage for a mercurial theatre of absurdity. As night falls, the magic settles in, with carols echoing through the icy air, while camaraderie is served up with the last tin of dried beans. Conversations arise around bonfires fashioned from discarded equipment, where makeshift hot meals replace military rations. Laughter mingles with candlelight, feeding spirits even more than the meagre meals can. A war-weary family celebration unfolds, where even trepidation lives to see another day. This celebration in the trenches shall echo through time, reminding us that beneath the mask of conflict lies a heart beating with unyielding spirit and humour. In the mud and mire of 1914, soldiers find comfort not only in each other, but in the realization that they're sharing a vital human experience, one that even the chaos of war can't obliterate. What's that? The sweet sound of Christmas carols wafting through the air? Think again. It's a cacophony of 1,000 dying pines mixed with distant artillery fire. It's like the world's worst mixtape. One moment you're humming Silent Night, and the next you're diving for cover. Talk about a holiday spirit with a kick. Welcome to a Christmas in the trenches, where the only baubles dangling are shrapnel and pine needles. On this crisp December morning in 1914, soldiers on both sides had long forgotten the days leading up to the conflict, each man lost in the bleakness of mud-covered boots and memories of home. As the sun wrestled its way into the cold sky, the soft resonance of a faint carol began to rise amidst the gloom. At first it was merely the soft echo of a lone British sergeant sending up a half-remembered carol to the universe like a prayer. God rest ye merry, gentlemen. How charming, right? Until the unexpected happened. Various bullets, shells and mortar rounds were replaced, albeit momentarily, by the awkward tentative responses of German voices chiming in from across no man's land. The grizzled men stopped their incessant grumbling as the realization dawned. The enemy was singing too. Just imagine that scene. A bunch of war-hardened soldiers throwing caution to the wind in the name of festive cheer. And yet here they were, sharing a heartfelt moment while still masked in the fog of war. Not wanting to feel left out in this marvellous display of goodwill, you'd pick up your harmonica, or was it an old tin whistle you had stashed away for the apocalypse, and contribute your own tuneful memories. The spontaneous choir swelled under the weight of frost and fear, unifying foes for a fleeting moment in an almost comical twist of fate. Snotty noses and raucous laughter replaced the sombre tones of war, a far cry from the blood-stained uniforms and heart-wrenching loss dotted around the fields. Who knew sentimentality could bloom in such grimy gardens? Like a scene ripped from the imagination of a sentimental playwright, the dreary conflict momentarily transformed into an improvised holiday concert. But here's where the absurdity ramps up. Over the airwaves, passed along like a family secret, came the incredibly unmelodic sound of something resonating between gunshots and jingle bells, a blundering rendition of "O Come All Ye Faithful." If anyone hadn't lost their sanity yet, that awful harmony was the final nail in the coffin. While you stood knee-deep in muck, perhaps adorned with a tattered, snagged scarf, you'd chuckle quietly to yourself, thinking of how your could-be holiday playlist had evolved to accommodate a stirring mashup of the Hallelujah chorus, with the sounds of artillery booming in the distance. Of course, a nearby bocce ball of a shell shocked the solemn congregation back into reality, shattering the cheer as laughter turned to instinctual flinching. Who knew war could be so darn festive? Instead of the usual symphony of chaos rattling through the heavily laden air, these men shared more than just hilarity. They shared warmth, an unexpected connection, a reluctant understanding, and an ever-present hope. For while the chill clung to their bones, another warmth ignited in their spirits. Little did these soldiers know, amidst singing and bravado, that they were sharing something far more potent than any trinket or tin of beans, an unparalleled human spirit that could refuse to die even in the darkest of times. So there you were, caught between the wildly absurd moments of laughter and the more sobering hum of cannon fire, filled with an odd sense of absurdity. As tails of snowflakes began to swirl down, landing on thick, musty uniforms, the world paused for a brief second of reverie, pushing back the realities of war, rediscovering laughter and joy in the unlikeliest of places. It wasn't a festive winter wonderland filled with warm mugs of spice cider and dancing flocks of jolly folk, but for those few short hours it came awfully close. Maybe this is what the season is truly about, a delicate balance of joy and pain, a reminder that even within the maw of chaos, you can still find room for song, laughter, and mirth. And just like that, Christmas echoed through the trenches, not merely as another stop on the conflict's relentless march, but as a lasting memory, holding power against the violence that stared across no man's land. Imagine finding yourself knee to knee with a German soldier. Not exactly the Christmas card you dreamed of, right? But here we are, two guys in mud-soaked boots, sharing more than dangerous job descriptions, perhaps a Swiss chocolate or two. Are you stifling laughter? Or is that just the sound of another soft-hearted soldier risking it all for a chocolate? The world had been turned upside down, and if you squint hard enough, the sight before you resembles a holiday party more than a battlefield. You murmur a cautiously cheerful "Merry Christmas" to your new acquaintance, while he fumbles to respond, probably in a mix of excitement and sheer disbelief. Have you ever thought about what it takes to find common ground in the most uncommon circumstances? Here you sit where just days earlier, your primary focus was survival, specifically making sure that your meal tonight isn't rat stew while trying to avoid becoming a human pincushion. But there's something different in the air, an unspoken agreement that for this one day, whether dressed in khaki or field grey, you're all simply men tired of mud and misery. Snowflakes begin to fall, eerily softening the cacophony of sounds that once announced enemies, reminding you that for today, silence is the new music, along with the impromptu rendition of Stille Nacht, echoing from both sides of no man's land. How surreal is that? It's more than just a war song. It's a reminder of humanity. In the distance, a soldier, whose name you will probably never know, raises a makeshift baton like a conductor at a concert that holds no audience, just mud-caked infantrymen wrapping their cold hands around warm memories. This is the magic of the Christmas Truce. It turns rivals into seasonal companions faster than you can say, "Jingle bells." As if the War Office had sent invitations adorned with glitter and holly, Men from opposing sides put down their rifles, well, temporarily, and picked up their hearts buried somewhere beneath all that dirt. Raised eyebrows and hesitant laughter morph into a tentative bonding ritual like boys at a birthday party, trying to hide how much they want cake but are too proud to say, "Yes, please." What's even better? The absurdity of swapping gifts in winter trenches. How did this happen? One soldier pulls out a tin of questionable figs that were buried deeper than his last will and testament, and the other bears a chocolate bar handed to him by someone who probably borrowed it from their mother. To think you used to root for country, but at this moment you realise that your greatest allegiance is to snacks and camaraderie over borders and flags. As you both gorge on rudimentary treats that are somehow sweeter when not accompanied by the clamour of artillery, you hear distant figures shout across the field, frantically searching for an escape route from their perpetually grim reality. "Trade you one fancy biscuit for a slice of this German sausage," is laughed about, not with the majesty of victory, but with a strange form of shared suffering made lighter by humour. Honestly, what else is left, given you might be the last remaining hope for each other's sanity? And before you know it, someone shouts for a football match. Yes, the kind your local pub attempts to recreate, but ends with more bar fights than championships. That ball is a symbol of camaraderie, not conflict. Wars have raged for ages, yet here, with nothing but a flat ball of air in your puffy jackets, you are pitching teams and pretending to be skilled players instead of scared waiters serving on a terrible battlefield of fate. Soon, laughter mingles with exhilaration as you charge and dodge each other, hearts beating with relief from the weight of reality. Are the lines truly drawn? Or are you all just players in a sick game of charades, realising that you have more in common than you ever could have dreamed? The fantasy of home creeps in, not as a heavy weight to bear, but as a buoy amidst the drowning chaos of war's pool. It's like every one of those holiday movies you've rolled your eyes at, suddenly thrust into the very middle of emotional warmth, cracking through all that ice. As the sun begins to set, ending your unexpected Christmas party, there's a strange peace to be had. With a batch of snow falling gently around you, you might consider opting for a truce that stretches beyond a single day. If only the world could catch on to the shared laughter and soft smiles glimmering even in the depth of the trenches. Because while war is hell, moments of pure humanity remind you that peace can be found where laughter rings the loudest. Welcome to the battlefield. But hold on, what's this? A Christmas truce has ignited a snowball war. It's less full-on warfare and more winter wonderland absurdity. Who knew that armies could throw snow? But here you are, dodging, ducking, and probably getting your face honoured with an entirely too friendly snowball. The frozen precipitation isn't just a cry of holiday cheer. It's your new best friend amidst the gloom of conflict. You find yourself standing in a makeshift arena where one moment could earn you a medal for valour or a face full of icy humiliation. Clad in heavy wool, you hurl a snowball with all the precision of a well-trained marksman, or at least a very lucky amateur. A shout from across no man's land narrows your focus just as another snowball sails past your ear, missing by a hair's breadth. In this brief and glorious moment, the trench walls fade, and you can almost imagine you're back in your childhood, carefree and blissfully ignorant of the horrors lurking behind every corner. Is this what they call the spirit of Christmas? In truth, it feels like someone read the wrong script. Guys, if we have to fight, can't we at least do it with bindings of cheer? The tricky part about participating in this snowball fight, besides the possibility of frostbite, is realising that you're not just battling your enemies. You're fully engaged in an act of bizarre camaraderie. Soldiers on either side, once sworn enemies, are now chuckling like a group of children during playtime, someone on the German side shouts, "Next goal wins," and without a moment's hesitation, you realise you've been drawn into a robust grassroots sporting event of the front lines. It's the Olympics of combat, minus the gold medals and insatiable egos. Instead, this is a competition forged from the anvil of absurdity. One particularly zesty British soldier decides to up the ante, launching a massive snowball that has the same velocity as a cannonball. You instinctively dash left, trying to avoid the mountain of white fury headed in your direction. It narrowly passes your shoulder and detonates with a soft explosion. Snow showers down on your comrades, and for a split second, you all stand there, blinking and breathless before bursting into laughter. It's a gathering of humanity among men who were previously positioned to take each other's lives. If this isn't a statement on the power of community, what is? As the skirmishes continue, the two sides slowly merge into a messy mishmash of soldiers leaning into the heart of play. Who would have known this is how they'd be enjoying companionship during war? You might hear fragments of Christmas carols faintly echoing in the distance, the notes a gentle melody drifting in and out among the shouts and laughter of men acting like boys once more. For a brief moment, the weight of their rifles and the horror of their reality dissipate like the snowflakes melting down the backs of their jackets. A regular voice rings out from a dark trench. What's next? A snowman building contest? Your gut laughs, but then you realise how quickly goodwill could dissipate. What would happen when the snow gets packed down, and every thwump of wool against wool gives way to the reality of orders and guns? Would the Christmas spirit carry into the next skirmish, or would it be lost in the mud, just like the last pieces of chocolate you traded during the initial ceasefire? But for now, the joy endures. As a limited truce blooms, laughter resonates across the lines, a sacred echo amidst the dissonance of war. The snowball fight may not solve world problems or end bloodshed, but it shows that even in the darkest times, humanity can remarkably rebound like a worn-out rubber band. This day is a treasure, even if it's compacted of snow and laughter, thrust together in a surreal embrace that bends reality. Suddenly, a truce is declared. The laughter subsides as both sides return awkwardly to their respective trenches. You can't help but think, what happens if everyone enjoys this? Will someone still want to pull the trigger after tossing snow about like carefree renegades? As the day draws to a close, one soldier on the German side waves a hand, raising a tin cup of tea for all to see, a most chaotic toast to a shared day of peace, laughter, and baffling games in the snow. In the depths of war, the absurdity of a snowball fight may define a day of unexpected, sketchy joy, proving that however lengthy the conflict may be, nothing beats the ability of people to come together in joyful absurdity to disrupt hostility, even if it only lasts until the morning light breaks anew. Between rounds of let's not shoot each other, everyone is pulling out their rations like it's show and tell day. The British bring out the tin of beans while the Germans unveil their schnapps. Oh, the irony! A true world festival of questionable culinary choices where nobody loses their limbs, but someone could definitely disregard taste. Forget about the type of weapons you're dealing with, because sharing your dry biscuits and soggy beans feels infinitely safer than, shooting at each other. You really can't make this stuff up. Imagine crouching in a cold, muddy trench that's essentially a giant pothole filled with regret, and then suddenly you're surrounded by a group of soldiers displaying their rations like they just scored a food truck at a music festival. One British soldier, who looks about ready to barter his last tin of particularly nasty beef stew, eyes the Germans with a mixture of curiosity and hunger. Meanwhile, a German soldier cracks open a bottle of their modestly popular schnapps, which smells like a bad idea in a bottle, and instantly serves as the hot topic of discussion. Gentlemen, let's trade. Is this in any way better than the gunpowder and shrapnel outside your muddy fortress? Quite possibly. Take a moment to ponder the culinary wonderland encircling you. Is that chocolate from a care package or something that's been buried since the last Christmas truce? How many weeks has that chocolate been resting like a not-so-beautiful relic of holiday cheer? Every soldier cannot resist the temptation to swap their depressing rations for something, anything, that doesn't taste like it emerged from a factory designed to maximise decay. The tension of war, it seems, is temporarily dulled by the laughter of men digging into makeshift meals that could make a five-star chef weep. What's that? The British muttering about how German sausages are just like their beer, both leaving a distinct aftertaste of regret. Meanwhile, the Germans retort by questioning the culinary acumen of the British pudding, which they insist is basically an insult to dessert. Oh, how delightful. This can only lead to a good-hearted roast battle, transforming fortifications into a culinary poetry slam. Let's not forget how the seasonal magic of Christmas influences this cheesy, raucous exchange. Everyone is sharing their family traditions as if the trenches are one big snow-dusted family reunion. One soldier recalls how his mum always burned the Christmas pudding until it looked like something emerged from a battlefield. But in this moment, with laughter echoing across the battlefield, he is more than just a soldier. He's a storyteller, a bridge between worlds prepared to remind everyone that life existed before the chaos. And what about the newly found scarcity of the rations you were once hoarding with a fierce grip? You've now found yourself sharing memorable bites of hardtack that resemble old chew, leather while your friends swap secret family recipes from their home fronts. The only issue? The rations may have travelled across the enemy lines, and who knows what condition they're in. Suddenly your desperate beans are now transformed into exotic treats with entertaining stories attached to them. Who knew the food chain could fade and become a delightful circle of common interests and hunger, where borders blurred into brotherhood? Alas, as you dive into your second helping of oddly seasoned beans, there's an unspoken understanding that this sharing is temporary. The spectre of war still looms, reminding everyone that in a couple of hours, if not sooner, you might be back to taking aim through the scopes of bitterness and conflict. Still, it's hard not to feel a surge of camaraderie as rations are exchanged, stories bantered, and surprise smiles flicker under the cold winter sky. But as the sun begins to sink beneath the horizon, casting long shadows over a makeshift battlefield, everyone knows the day is wrapping up. In an ultimate twist of fate, you could even say the camaraderie lingers a bit longer into twilight, as plans for survival over delicious snacks become plans for survival over battle once again. How strange and surreal to be laughing and enjoying the taste of sweet schnapps when mere hours could flip you back into an unforgiving reality. So here you are, nestled between camaraderie forged through culinary chaos and festively questionable cooking choices, merely trying not to think about what comes next. In the shadow of war and the echoes of laughter, one thing is clear: this day, fraught with absurdity, is more than just a fleeting moment. It's a lesson that even amidst chaos, the shared experiences of humanity can transcend the brutality of conflict. Can you believe it? A soccer match breaks out in no man's land and you've got front row seats. It's the world's oddest game. No referees, no rules, and definitely no cleared grounds. Just a hodgepodge of men kicking a ball kind of like they're bored of dying and actually want to have fun. It's not every day you'll see soldiers from opposing sides rally together to find solace in a dusty, muddy field. But here we are, witnessing the absurdity of war meet the euphoria of play. Imagine it. The air snaps with excitement. Maybe it's the cold, or maybe it's the promise of unmitigated joy amidst the chaos. the ranks of Khaki and Feldgrau, which, for those of you keeping score, is German for field grey, clash. But today, they share more than a desire to shoot one another. The ball rolls out onto the battlefield, and in a scene seemingly lifted from a sleep-deprived daydream, you dip your head to avoid a wayward kick from an overzealous player who swears he was a striker back home. As men from both sides gather, you can't help but marvel at the ridiculousness. One chap wipes the mud from his boots and shouts, "I didn't sign up for this!" But just like that, he's sprinting forward, leaving his rifle behind like a forgotten date. You can almost hear the collective gasp of every sergeant and field commander. Somewhere off to the side, generations of military training are flung out the window, eclipsed by the human instinct to play. Perhaps for a fleeting moment, they're not combatants but bros kicking up dirt, looking to see who can land the flattest shot on goal for bragging rights. And oh, the chaos of it all. One soldier begins a daring sprint, both legs pumping, an impressive feat given that his trousers are as tattered as a forgotten flag. Another plays the goalie, hands on his knees, grinning like someone who just heard a joke too good to resist. A shout ripples through the rank and file. "Don't forget your positions!" as if they'll revert to their military roles once the scores are up. But let's be real. When was the last time your captain told you to relax and kick a soccer ball in the name of morale? Last summer at the unit potluck? Now, let's talk strategy, or lack thereof. The Germans, showing their tactics, have formed a solid wall in the defensive line, while the British charge in with an enthusiastic, albeit chaotic, wave of feet. You could almost hear a commentator narrating, "And the British troops are charging. Oh my, and there's a collision. The ball is back in play. A shot is taken." If only there was someone with a thick moustache to cap off this sporting bonanza. Sadly, yells of glee soon morph into frantic calls for heads up, if only because only one player actually remembers that heading the ball here does not double as dodging bullets. As the game rolls on, you notice an unbelievable camaraderie taking over, just like a batch of Grandma's secret festive cookies. The boys, once just faceless spectres of war, now laugh, playfully teasing one another and indulging in a baffling sense of unity that is jarringly refreshing amid the backdrop of destruction. You can't help but be swept up in it. Even as a silent observer, there's genuine spirit bouncing around like a wild ball, almost akin to a children's playground mixed with an adult-sized pity party. Every missed kick, every goal celebrated like it's the winning shot of the World Cup, is as overwhelming as a carol sung at the crack of dawn. Imagine the rich chocolate shared at half-time, taking on the complexity of voicemails from dear home. The sense that, even in these dire circumstances, they're truly alive together. It's a living time capsule where human connection transcends the war-torn earth beneath their feet. But just like every joyous moment, there's a shadow creeping in. As sunbeams shift toward the horizon, the weight of the day, of the war looming just beyond the muddy field, settles like a fog. Cries of joy turn into muffled concerns, reminding you that the tranquility of the soccer match feels too good to be true. Reality catches up, knowing that the whistle can go off and send these boys back to their posts at any moment. So, we must ask ourselves, is this beautiful absurdity just a fleeting dream? Ultimately, as the makeshift match wraps up and the cheers of victory fade into the echo of artillery, you come to realise these fleeting moments, however bizarre, become memories of humanity amidst the chaos. This unexpected respite speaks volumes about brotherhood, born from a crazy mix of mud, laughter, and that oddly shaped leather ball. Despite the clouds of war hanging over them, the laughter lingers on, much like the echoes of a long-cherished holiday song, warming the hearts of all those souls. If you think camping in the backyard is rough, try bunking down in a dank trench between two confused mates. It's like a winter camping expedition gone horrifically wrong, where your only luxury is a floor that resembles a wading pool. But who needs a 5-star resort when you have the camaraderie of muddy boots and trench foot? You huddle together like forlorn penguins, trying to avoid the freezing temperatures gnawing at your skin while praying that the mud doesn't swallow you whole. As the night creeps in, the gale of frigid winds is more relentless than your grandma insisting on hearing every detail of your latest job. The trench smells like a mixture of stale sweat, damp earth, and the dim, lingering whiff of hope that somehow past Netflix marathons would bring comfort. It's enough to make you question why you didn't take a cold, hard look at that promising office job back in July. Your room is a narrow slice of heaven, if heaven were a luxurious pit filled with the remnants of last week's rations. The food, canned mystery meat that could have once been a chicken, or just as likely, your cousin Larry. As you lie there, the only thing warming your spirits is a flickering candle that looks like it might blow out at any moment, kind of like your hopes for a peaceful night. And did someone mention a psychedelic parasite? Because the rats cheering you on in the corner are beginning to look more appealing than the business end of a spoonful of mystery stew. This surreal reality introduces a simple fact of trench life. Not even the tiniest flicker of comfort is guaranteed. Right above your battered heads, the moon defiantly shines, like that one friend who's always having a great time on social media while you're stuck in your muddy, disaster-laden life. There's something beautifully absurd about it all, like a cosmic joke played by the universe, while everyone clutches their rifles instead of marshmallows around a campfire. Can you really call this life? Sometimes it feels less like survival, and more like a treadmill with a broken speed setting that moves you toward the edge of calamity. As dawn breaks on the silent battlefield, the shadows of your trenchmates dance on the walls, casting eerie shapes that might spiral into nightmares. You half expect to spot a unicorn in that light, because surely that level of absurdity can't be any more outrageous than this. But the actual rhythm of life is different here. Morning brings the inherent dread of waking up to a hum of chaos in the trenches. Have those snowball fights they had last night turned into serious brawls? Will you even be able to walk in the frozen sludge or just slide around like misguided penguins? There's a certain brotherhood in adversity, though. Amidst the clanging, the grumbling, and the constant feeling like your boots are about to disappear into the mud, something remarkable happens. Simple humanity shines through. While there's no room, service knocking at your trenches, the best kind of hospitality comes alive in the form of shared rations and stories whisked away by the wind, proving that war may be horror, but it can also swing into camaraderie like the most surreal family reunion you never knew you needed. Of course, you might think, hey, where's the fun in that? And you'd be right. In this muddy hotel, it's hard to find fun amid the chaos. What's next on the trench agenda? A game of cards using muddied ration cards? Or do we sing carols in hopeful defiance while clutching rifles? After all, in such grotesque surroundings, laughter becomes a revolutionary act. As midnight approaches, you ponder what a fresh holiday feast would look like. A vast banquet hall, glistening chandeliers, and the tantalizing scent of ham slowly roasting. But then you remember what day it actually is. A celebration of warmth has turned into shared misery. Your home might be the worst hotel ever, but alas, it's your home. So you raise your canteen to your roommates with a sarcastically cheerful "Merry Christmas, gentlemen," and surprisingly, they raise theirs back with a grin. That era of trench life is fraught with despair, but each interaction, each shared morsel of understanding, brings a flicker of light to a darkened world. When morning finally breaks, and the reality of life in the trenches descends upon the merry band of misfits, be ready to face another day. The truth is, you never really know what surprises await in the minefield of muddled lives. But for now, cosy in your 5-star trench hotel, embracing the absurdity has never felt so profoundly right. Keep your dreams afloat, comrades. It's Christmas Day, and laughter in the shadows might just be the best gift of all. The power of the written word, more valuable than gold, especially when attempting to flirt with a potential pen pal at home. Soldiers write letters to loved ones, resolved to not share the grim fate of their muddy surroundings. Are you the romance novelist of the battlefield, or just a hot mess trying to be poetic and heartfelt? Picture this. You're huddled in a damp trench, mud squishing between your toes, and a week's worth of rationed beans simmering uneasily in your stomach, when suddenly you decide that now is the perfect time to craft an epistle that would make Shakespeare proud. The flickering candlelight, dim as a dying firefly, illuminates your parchment, your escape route from the grime and chaos surrounding you. As you dip your quill into the inkwell, the ink sloshes around like the hopes you barely cling to. You write about beautiful fields bathed in sunlight, not the dreary muck you're currently dodging, hoping to imbue your recipient with visions of pastoral bliss. Is it dishonest? Perhaps. But when your readers back home receive your letter, do they really want to hear about the mud caked on your boots and the latest rat infestation? Probably not. So you wax poetic about the bright stars overhead, while your reality is more like a dystopian sludge nightmare, and somehow that makes you feel like a literary genius. Now what about those writing supplies? The inkwells and fragile paper don't come with soldier-issued kits. If you were lucky enough to hold on to that well-loved notebook back in training, you'd use it until it looked like it had survived a trench warfare battle too. You might tear a page to send alongside your letter as a cheeky way of saying, "Hey, I thought of you while dodging shrapnel, and isn't it cute that you saved that flimsy sheet with the last wrinkle of your hopes?" Meanwhile, your love letters are carefully folded, crammed into an empty chocolate box. Never mind that it was last week's emergency field rations. Every sweet sentiment you inscribe becomes a tiny piece of your heart, sealed with a side of hope and a twist of longing. The letters serve as time capsules of your soul, floating between worlds, one filled with the smell of gunpowder and the other with the scent of home-cooked pies. But what happens to these precious messages, you ask? They embark on a perilous journey over barbed wire, dodging enemy fire while navigating treacherous conditions, much like a game of overly dangerous hopscotch. Perhaps they arrive unscathed and burst forth with joy, bringing tears of gratitude. However, the grim truth of war might mean they get intercepted, lost, or worse, never received at all. Who knew that expressing true love could come with such a high price? On the flip side, these letters serve as beautifully written artifacts showcasing both the fragility and strength of love in times of war. Whether they reach their intended recipient or not, they echo a universal truth. Human. Connection is a resilient vine, growing through fire and ash, even amid the chaos of conflict. You might be imagining a woman back home, unfolding your carefully crafted letter with nervous anticipation, and reading each word with a smile that battles the surrounding fears. And there's nothing more ironic than a sappy soldier writing romantic verses while dodging incoming artillery shells. Perhaps he ponders, will she think of me when the clock strikes midnight? Or is she wearing the scarf I knitted her with my own 2 calloused hands? The romantic absurdity wades into your trench, like an uninvited friend at a party, naive, heartfelt, and beautifully out of context. Moreover, your letters might become stories told around campfires, eliciting laughter, camaraderie, and even affectionate echoes of "Find someone who loves you like this guy loves his pen pal." Soldiers huddled over their grimy warmth might nod along, encouraging those with mushy hearts to dream boldly amidst muddy despair. Because even in calamity, a little humour goes a long way. So, when you think about love letters from the front lines, they're not just messages. They're lifeboats floating amid an ocean of uncertainty. Each sentiment, a route to nostalgia. Each narrative, a desperate bid for connection, and a testament to the undying wish for life to be more than what it wears on the surface. Even if your recipient isn't reading them, picking a portion of bedlam and sending it home tells a story. That love, even when submerged in muck, can shine the brightest light. Sweet letters in a bitter trench. That's a scene we all should remember. As dawn breaks, it turns out that Christmas is more than just a day to celebrate. It's also a time for reflection, camaraderie, and possibly some regrettable decisions involving too much schnapps. You're officially part of a world where men gather over little bullets and bigger dreams. What a way to start the holiday hungover. The cold air bites your skin, a sharp reminder that you're far from the cosy embrace of home, where spiced cider already simmers over an open fire. Instead, you're nestled in a mud pit, sandwiched between two disgruntled French soldiers who haven't bathed since the last time a good rain washed through. As you groggily pull yourself from your makeshift bed of mildewed blankets and hay, the first rays of sunlight sneak through the gnarled branches above, illuminating the frost coating your boots. The chill creeps in around your ankles. It's less than inviting, like the ex you haven't blocked on social media still peeking at your updates. You can hear the last echoes of carols sung the night before still reverberating in the distance, ever so slightly drowned out by the occasional distant cough or grunt from the men getting ready for the next inevitable bout of warfare. "Today, men," booms a voice, and you're drawn to the motivation behind the words. Captain McGregor, a man with more brass than brains but a heart of gold, stands atop a precarious mound of mud, ready to launch into a rousing speech that is likely to involve metaphors of Christmas joy and brotherhood, laced with a hint of nostalgia for home. Or, let's be honest, mostly about how nobody should let that German ruffian steal their Christmas cheer. You think you spot a tear forming in his eye, but it's likely just the severe dehydration. McGregor usually made a point of pushing morale, whiskey bottle in hand, or so you've heard. It would be hilarious, this whole scene unfolding in the dead of winter, if it wasn't your grim reality. Never mind the fact that just a few yards away, the Germans are probably waking up to their own versions of Christmas bliss. Their commander probably telling them to maintain dignity while they down another round of schnapps. It's a collective nightmare wrapped in absurdity. Christmas cheer amidst muddy trenches and the looming threat of the rifles ready to belch smoke and death. Who knew that appearing in a real-life war and peace drama would mean shivering through holiday traditions? You try to shake the lingering fog from your head. It's time to break out the rations, because despite the war, you still have a thirst that only lukewarm tea can potentially quench. You rummage through your supplies, wrestling with a tin that seems more stubborn than usual. Will you be left with half-eaten bologna and a sad, crusty piece of bread? Or is there some movement of providence that could deliver a piece of chocolate shared last night? Tremors of excitement tingle in your core, but realistically, you can already taste the disappointment of a flavourless breakfast awaiting you. And what about the celebratory lunch? Will it be eaten in sombre silence or raucous laughter? You can imagine the divide, one side joyfully calling out for more sport, the other muttering about strategic moves. The irony drips thick in the air, as if the universe has conspired to temporarily suspend the chaos outside, to let these brave men taste, however fleeting, the sweetness of fellow feeling. You catch a glimpse through the frost-rimmed trench, witnessing the bizarre ritual unfold. soldiers cracking jokes, passing around trinkets, offering up heartfelt toasts, likely all under the peculiar impression that maybe, just maybe, everything will be okay. Then there's the football that miraculously appears, a dusty old leather ball that has seen better days and, let's be honest, far fewer bullets. Unofficially, it now becomes the symbol of peace. You see the glimmer of hope in their eyes. It's a peculiar camaraderie, the kind forged in mud and misfortune, as laughter spills over the edges of your trench and some fellows hoist their first can of beans in salute to the absurdity of survival. The truce feels like a stubborn ember refusing to die. With each kick of the ball, it's a holiday miracle. Amidst the horrors of war, humanity shines through and, just for today, the world feels a little less broken. So as you stare into the frigid morning, preparing for uncertain plans still left untold, you can't help but wonder what comes next. Will tomorrow's sunrise bring the continuation of conflict? Or will the memory of this day linger in history wrapped like the gifts of yore? Either way, it's undeniable. In the trenches and against all odds, hope and laughter found a space to thaw even the coldest hearts. But alas, midnight kisses and snow fights can't last forever. It's back to reality, and the business of war beckons like an impatient boss demanding reports while you're still muttering about that amazing Christmas party. You'll need to stash that soccer memory just like your heart, as you gear up for the daily grind of trench life. The muddy, damp surroundings are making it quite clear that the only regular party you'll be attending is the cocktail of wet socks and trench foot, served with a side of perpetual frostbite. So, it's back to gloomy duties as you stand in line for the dubious breakfast of watery porridge and whatever few lucky beans survived the cold of the previous night. A quick glance around your muddy refuge reveals a chorus of weary faces, fresh from the revelries but donning the same expression of grim determination. Is that a hint of nostalgia in your comrade's eyes as he clutches a tattered photo of his family? Or is it just the realization that his kids are probably using that photo as a dartboard by now? Breakfast conversations are no longer about laughter and camaraderie. They revolve around strategies for the day, whimsical anecdotes of the previous evening, and the ongoing lament over poor rations. Ever tried to philosophize over the last dregs of cold, stale coffee? It's about as appealing as a mushroom stew from the darkest corners of a tax collector's pantry. As sounds of distant gunfire slowly reclaim your consciousness, you inevitably find yourself adjusting to the wartime rhythm. The infantrymen inch toward their routine trench patrol with the same enthusiasm you'd have for cleaning out a chicken coop. You might catch a whiff of gun oil mixed with the unmistakable scent of human desperation. It's a fragrance so heady it should come with a warning label. Inception of poor decisions ahead. Picture that, and there it is, the whistle. That horrendous shrill sound that announces the drudgery of the day. Time to pick up weapons and take your position in the trenches. This is no ordinary day. You've just been assigned to the watering hole of hell, reconnaissance duty. Congratulations, you're now part of that infamous rotation of men with rifles waiting to be bored to tears. Have you ever tried staying alert while the world around you resembles a painting crafted by the most pessimistic artist in history? As you stare off at the muddied fields, visions of vivid, chaotic battle flash through your mind. Is that a shadow to your left, or just your own imagination compelling you to sketch out an escape plan? Caught in a daydream, your focus drifts to the sound of distant laughter shared amongst opposing soldiers. They were just playing football yesterday. Today, however, it feels like the laughter has been swallowed by the endless clatter of artillery shells. And speaking of shells, it's time to find cover. Rumours are bubbling up like boiling water that your sector is about to get a walloping dose of enemy attention. Your zen-like sandwich of existential dread and misplaced soldierly bravado gets shoved to the side as you scramble into a crater, an excited squirrel in search of a hasty refuge. Who knew the real horror of war could look so much like a game of musical chairs? As night falls, stepping back to hope is like reaching for the last piece of chocolate on Christmas, stolen straight from your pal's stash. Light returns in the form of smoky candlelight as you and your comrades huddle close, sharing rations, cold hands, and a growing sense of camaraderie that reminds you of the peculiar warmth of the previous day's laughter. Swap stories, hand out some political quips, or even share the latest gossip about the sergeant's unfortunate shirt choices. Did you see those socks with stirrups? It's a miracle he hasn't started a new fashion trend. You might giggle, remembering the unlikelihood of it all, the history that emerged from a day of unexpected peace nearly drowned out by the chaos of war's reality. As you each ponder over what laughter means amid this desolation, a peculiar thought emerges. Perhaps, with each stolen laugh, you're collectively crafting the most audacious defiance imaginable. In a silent salute to the joys flickering like weak flames in the darkness, you remember that amidst the mud and chaos, there is a fierce, unyielding spirit of humanity that refuses to be extinguished. And as you settle down for the night, your mind drifts back to that snowy Christmas day, where a moment of glorious absurdity pierced through the veil of despair. Could it be that laughter, camaraderie, and the memory of those snowballs thrown in jest hold the power to outlast even the most resounding battle cries? That stubborn heart of comradeship shall surely persist, echoing through the ages as a testament to the bizarre, humorous, and ultimately beautiful essence of humanity, no matter how messy the trenches may become. Fast forward to the world as it unfolds after the truce. Here lies the paradox of war. While the world runs on chaos and blood, a quiet moment granted nations a gentle reminder that humanity still lives beneath helmets and rifles. Do we dare ask if peace is ever on the horizon? For a brief time, soldiers felt lighter. They shared stories, laughs, and maybe the only good chocolate some of them had tasted in months. That day, they weren't just soldiers relegated to muddy uniforms and grim duties. They were human beings, sharing humanity with the enemy. But what would this fleeting sentiment of joy mean in the long run? Picture this. As the files of muddy boots return to their respective sides, both groups leave the haze of that bizarre truce with something unexpected. A flicker of hope. Soldiers who once eyed each other like hawks are now doing something as extravagant as sharing a game of soccer. Did they put aside their differences just long enough to acknowledge the absurdity of their circumstances? Turns out, yes. But would that camaraderie last amidst the roar of artillery and the dreariness of trench life? One can't help but wonder, was it a performance for the ages, destined to slip away like snow in the rain? As the world continued to spin, the echo of that Christmas day travelled further than a Christmas card sent from France to England. It ricocheted through the minds of those charged with leading these dire military operations. Could something beautiful, even small, rise from the ashes of chaos? Policymakers furrowed their brows, perhaps grappling with the weight of holiday cheer over disaster plans. Surely, someone mused, could these soldiers exchange presents instead of bullets next Christmas? One quiet moment amidst the chorus of conflict might just create ripples across the future, wouldn't it? But alas, reality rarely heeds the hopeful whispers of change. Dawn inevitably breaks on another day of battle, where humour is soon buried under mud, despair, and the sharp echo of gunfire. The soldiers return to their grim routines, where Christmas carols have no place on the scoring chart of military goals. As they hunker down in their trenches, thoughts of the previous day's fun feel distant, like a phantom from a dream. The commanding officers didn't care for games or camaraderie. They preferred discipline and resolve over friendliness. Such a shame, because who can resist a good snowball fight? Meanwhile, on a wider scale, world leaders peruse the papers and shake heads at looming news. The news doesn't sell fond memories of shared laughter. It peddles the latest report on enemy movements, battlefield positions, and supply shortages. In a world ruled by fear, the bond these soldiers briefly shared becomes a mere footnote in the history books. You could almost hear the newspaper editors grumbling, you think. Who needs tales of camaraderie when chaos sells? Nonetheless, that Christmas truce hangs like an uninvited ghost shimmering softly in the background of the war's relentless cacophony. Historians pore over it, and poets spin sonnets in reverence, hoping to capture a moment when men chose to forget the fight, even if just for a day. But will the hearts that warmed momentarily remember that warmth when next tasked with pulling the trigger? The struggle is real. For the average soldier, friendships forged in fleeting moments become delicate threads in an untruthful tapestry sprawled across a landscape of hypocrisy. Now, decades later, the reverberations of that extraordinary day wander through the time-worn pages of history. Each sneeze and cough of conflict creates echoes that remind soldiers on future battlefields about the silliness of war. In times when another global shambles raises its head like clockwork, thoughts of the Christmas truce bubble back to the surface. Befriend your enemy, or fight till the last breath. Do we clash only to create tales for future generations? Or do we recall this mark in history to illuminate the path toward lasting peace? Wouldn't it be nice to believe that this moment of brotherhood, of laughter transcending conflict, serves as a reminder of our shared humanity even amidst chaos? Perhaps there's a lesson to be learned. The universal fight for lasting peace often finds its roots in the most unlikely places, and perhaps, just perhaps, that flickering moment of joy might stir in others the notion that while laughter might not end wars, it just might ease the burden while they last. As you lean back into your pillow, reflecting on laughter stirring amid bloodshed, remember you're part of this continuum, this tangle of humanity that cries out for laughter amid the darkness. Now that the dust has settled and the war machines reignite, what are the sad remnants of that magical Christmas moment? Are they little vignettes of laughter held captive in muddy memories? Or just the shadow of a question that lingered fantastically through the years, lurking behind each forward-facing military medal? As soldiers return to the grind of war, spurred on by the sight of comrades lost and the echo of half-forgotten songs, the poignancy of that truce festers in their minds like an old headache that won't go away. And let's not even start on the logistics of recounting tales of peace among a cacophony of cannon fire. Picture it. Men, fresh from a no-man's land of shared biscuits and snowball targets, are forced back into the acrid embrace of war. They chew over the Christmas truce at every chance, yet every embrace of joy is steeped in the grime of what awaits them. It's as though the universe conspired to give them a fleeting taste of normalcy, a collective coffee break marked with spirit only to say, "Just kidding, the D-Day style shenanigans continue." Talk about a cruel cosmic joke. While one soldier might still be daydreaming of the moment he swapped dark chocolate for some dubious German sausage, another is resigned to diving head first back into the trenches. Now, these guys are no ordinary soldiers. No way. They wear their experiences like extra layers of pea coats, each filled with memories, some as poignant as a Christmas carol, others as jarring as a misplaced grenade. They laugh about the soccer match like it's an inside joke nobody got to hear, the kind of laughter that hides layers of melancholy behind it. Remember when we celebrated Christmas in no man's land, one might say, chuckling nervously, while another grumbles, yeah, well, that'll teach us to get too cosy. True that. There's nothing that shatters mirth quicker than a millisecond reminder that tomorrow is just another run-of-the-mill, mud-soaked battlefield. Post-war, society is peppered with reflections on comradeship and shared absurdity, the oddities that spun out of necessity rather than genuine cheer. You might hear stories of two soldiers sharing more moments of sisterly knitting than manly bonding, relying more on each other's friendship than on the sometimes heinous repercussions of war. Trust may become a currency with fluctuating values, a treasure held in secret amidst the fluctuations of fear. Who knows? One lucky fellow might be promoted to the rank of best friend simply for kicking an acceptable size snowball, while another finds himself stuck polishing his boots, a ceremonial dusting of a medal that now feels more like a shameful gold star in a 4th grade arts and crafts project. As the years roll on, tales of laughter around fires and muddy boots become the fodder of legends, glowing like soft embers fading into the night sky. These moments find their way into poems and songs, an emotional juxtaposition that invites both reverence and nostalgia. It's not long before scene transitions begin to unfold, from the heartwarming embrace of solace to the harsh reality of PTSD and numbness lurking just beneath the surface. It's like a tender holiday rom-com interrupted by sudden and unyielding war documentaries, a 2-for-1 special you never asked for. A call for unity resonates deeply within these narratives. It falls upon weary shoulders like an ill-fitting overcoat on a summer day. The more time passes, the more the soldiers realise that the Christmas truce is a mere flickering candle in a frigid dark room. Is it worth preserving, or merely a whimsical offering fleetingly romanticised like forgotten candy canes? Did it serve a genuine purpose, or was it a fairy tale dream smeared by the brutish wake of reality? Some hold the laughter close, sanitising their memories from the curse of war. Others grapple with the softer spectres haunting their souls every moment, wrestling over the futility of the situation, the ultimate knee-slapper. What was that all for, they muse, wandering through life as though moving through a post-war fog that clings tighter than wet laundry in a basement. Ultimately, the echoes of that Christmas truce weave an intricate tapestry firmly stitched into each soldier's tale. They might roll their eyes, but the truth is, their hearts beat more vibrantly than the medals bespeckling their chests. They are constant reminders that under the grimmest of circumstances, humanity can crawl forth, clutching laughter amidst turmoil, a fleeting reminder that perhaps laughter is the soldier's most powerful weapon after all. Wait a minute. What became of the soldiers who celebrated together? Some still bear the scars of that winter, while others carry delightful stories of truce through the ages. Did they go back to their families with the hope of never having a Christmas like that again? For many of these men, the Christmas truce wasn't just a fleeting interlude. It was a jarring clash between the absurdity of war and the warmth of individual humanity. They returned to their families, transformed somewhat, as if they had peeked behind the curtain of the chaos that consumed their lives and discovered something profoundly moving in the process. Witnessing firsthand those moments of joy in the face of daily terror likely made the return to ordinary life feel decidedly surreal. After frolicking in the mud like kids on a snow day, how do you re-enter your life in a world full of rancour and tension? You might imagine them arriving at home, boots still caked with frozen mud. The very ghosts of Christmas past weighing heavily in each step. "Honey, I'm home," they shout, but all that's echoing back is, "Why do you smell like wet dog and gunpowder?" It's hard to explain a truce to a wife who just wants her husband back safe and sound, not some muddy philosopher wandering in with tales of singing and soccer. As the years went by, some veterans smiled as they reminisced about how they unified not as enemies, but as brothers for a day, turning barren, muddy fields into a makeshift football pitch. In small taverns, embers flickering in the hearth, they'd tell a tale or two about how they braved enemy lines for a game that felt more like a peculiar dream than reality. "I scored the winning goal," they'd boast, their laughter mixing with the sound of clinking mugs containing frothy ales. The line between enemy and friend had never felt so blurred, as though the boundaries drawn by generals were nothing more than chalk marks on a sidewalk, a momentary inconvenience washed away by the tide of humanity. Now, some might wonder if this beautiful miracle of a moment had any ripple effects on the war itself. Did this brief pause spark questions among the upper brass? Did commanding generals scratch their heads and mutter, "Why are we even fighting?" Probably not. The military brass were far too busy planning their next strategies and perfecting their stern faces, probably fueled by some snazzy new moustaches. One can only imagine how heartily generals ignored the hearts beating beneath those muddy exteriors, fully convinced of their rightness. Interestingly enough, there are whispers that echo through the annals of history, proclaiming the truce's undercurrents reached beyond the trenches and perhaps brought about a wave of questions about purpose. Soldiers returning home bore not just their war stories, but an insatiable hunger for peace, a reluctance to re-engage in the relentless cycle of violence. While they may not have toppled governments with their merry-winged utopia, they became living testaments to the fact that in the mess of war, humanity is not entirely lost. Fast forward a few decades, and we are left to ponder: did those who experienced the truce pass these stories on to their children and grandchildren? Were tales told over roaring campfires or potluck dinners? "Did I ever tell you about the Christmas that I shared chocolate with a German?" they'd say, like an old man proudly regaling tales of the Wild West. "Forget our history books," he'd chortle. "This was real history. No grandstanding, no dramatic wars, just mud and merriment." The truce may not have made it into official histories in ways that resonated through time, yet it found its niche nestled in the hearts of those who lived it, each soldier carrying their own unique slice of shared humanity, a bit of sanity tucked away amid an avalanche of chaos. Were these tiny legends of unity enough to ensure wars become stories rather than realities? One can only hope. As we wander through a world thick with division, the legacy of that Christmas truce begs us to explore our own moments of connection, those tiny gatherings of fellowship that remind us we're all human. It challenges us to wonder if there's a chance to create pockets of peace amid our discord, using laughter as our bridge. Much like those weary soldiers, we too can carry forth the legacies of love, camaraderie, and the cheeky absurdity of finding joy, a gift somehow remarkably present within even the direst of circumstances. And perhaps that is the most enduring legacy of all. Did that day challenge the very fabric of soldierly duty and hint at a need to redefine heroes? Look around, and you realize that shared humanity stretches beyond borders and rifle sights. It's a spicy blend of philosophical questions. What does it mean to be human amidst havoc? This was no ordinary war experience. It was an existential crisis draped in muddy wool and frostbitten toes. Here you are, engaged in a tale of compassion perched precariously atop a world known for chaos. Just imagine two soldiers from opposing sides, sharing a warm cup of tea, laughing nervously, and attempting to out-sing each other in a chorus of forgotten carols. Such moments bring forth a reconsideration of the battlefield. Could love and laughter really transcend the gruesome reality of war? Now, picture yourself in that trench, nervously eyeing your German counterpart while he huddles close for warmth. his breath a visible puff of steam mingling with the chill of winter. You might think, what's that behind his eyes? Could it be the same longing for home that I carry? Sharing rations, swapping laughter, and even trying to remember the verses of O Holy Night, while dodging artillery isn't something most military strategy books prepare you for. It's like finding a rainbow in a muddy ditch. Unexpected, beautiful, and faintly absurd. Curiously enough, these fleeting connections give rise to a notion that humanity can exist in the conga line of despair. While artillery shells scream overhead, men pause, their laughter budding amid a frozen landscape more solemn than a Sunday family dinner when Uncle Nigel brings his questionable casserole. In that surreal moment you find yourself thinking, maybe laughter is the best weapon against despair. It's as though the universe itself was handing them a sabbatical from the seriousness of death to find a nugget of joy buried under layers of grime. But what does this mean for the idea of heroism? The heroic image of a soldier has historically been stamped in bronze. Brave, stoic, ready to charge into the inferno without a second thought. But what if a true hero also knew the value of humanity in war? Can you imagine the sort of transmutation happening as those men rolled snowballs instead of bullets? On Christmas Day, these soldiers become less like traditional heroes with chests of iron and more like scavengers of sentiment, craving connection in a world where one's own life could be extinguished with the pull of a trigger. Fast forward to later wars, and consider the echoes of this day. How many more lives could be saved if we fostered connections amid shared adversities? Faced with stark realities or perhaps humorously absurd scenarios, soldiers recognise that humour becomes a coping mechanism more potent than any medic could offer. The ability to sing away in a manger underlines something profoundly important. A reminder that one can still be irreverently filled with kindness in places steeped in sorrow. As you draw closer to the end of this sock-dampening tale, you ponder on whether a Christmas truce was merely a momentary lapse in the chaos, or if it sprouted seeds of profound wisdom that could still germinate today. Perhaps the essence of humanity thrives in understanding the fragility of peace, a juicy carrot dangling on a string that often seems tantalizingly out of reach, yet allows for the shaping of better futures. In considering soldiers in war, we unveil the masks that conceal their fears and vulnerabilities. Together they become raw and human, yearning for joy amidst the shadows of gloom. So what if, in the thick of chaos, you find two men fighting their way to peace through laughter, food, and an odd football game? Heroes are not just defined by their deeds, but by their compassion for one another, even when faced with incomprehensible violence. As you slip deeper into sleep, let the echo of that Christmas day linger like a soft melody, a buoyance against the weight of despair, a reminder of a beautiful truth, that even in war it's the bonds of humanity that shape heroes, transform tragedies, and remind us above all to float towards hope's horizon. In the end, it's this tapestry of interwoven lives that may ultimately teach us how to redefine the very essence of coexistence. What were the generals thinking while their soldiers played games in the mud? Are these moments a nudge towards peace, or a clever trick to showcase one potent side of war while the other remains hidden? History's layers aren't always as creamy as the dream world might paint for your imagination. Picture the scene: a dodgy bureaucrat polishing his shiny epaulettes, squinting through a fog of pipe smoke as he scribbles down reports. Meanwhile, in the trenches, those same soldiers he ordered to rain bullets upon each other are joyfully swapping biscuits and carols, blissfully unaware of the heavy political chess game being played one layer above their muck. It's like a bizarre comedy where the punchline is buried beneath 2 feet of grotesque mire. As troops braved the cold and cheered during a game of soccer amidst the misery, the high-ranking officials back at headquarters must have twisted their moustaches in delight, at least the ones who hadn't been conscripted to stay awake all Christmas night drafting news bulletins. Were they thinking this truce could communicate the spirit of goodwill, or were they simply treating it like a public relations stunt? Can you just imagine a well-fed general staring into a crystal ball, predicting how a few snowflakes exchanged between trench lines would win hearts back home? Oh yes, young Carl, my proxy R&D team will advise me that the populace simply adores sentimental nonsense. Charming. But let's have a moment of introspection. The camaraderie created by this temporary armistice wasn't just a fluke. It was a survival mechanism, an act of rebellion against the endless cycle of war that sought to absorb all light. These brothers in arms became instant allies against a greater foe, the monotonous, soul-sucking misery of trench warfare. Would the generals even recognise this outpouring of humanity, or would they simply wheel out the old slideshow about the virtues of sacrifice? And here's the kicker. Just after their peaceful respite, the very men who played football would be expected to lace their boots back up and extend their thirst for carnage, like they were attempting to run a marathon while juggling flaming swords. One day's truce led to further bloodshed. The goodwill built on ice-cold chocolate bars melted faster than snow atop a baking tin. It raises a curious question. What are we, as a society, prepared to ignore in the name of duty? One foot in the trench and the other in a halfway celebratory cheer. A delicate balancing act akin to walking a tightrope each time you step outside in flip-flops, risking stubbed toes. We can't help but wonder, did this truce hold power, or was it merely a fleeting fluke, an absurdity in an otherwise sombre scenario? Imagine soldiers exchanging notes, planning their next joint Christmas together, while back at headquarters, power-hungry generals grumble over poor receptions of their most recent weapon tests. The troops will be too busy playing soccer to care about our next offensive, they might complain, as a helicopter swoops by in the distance, unintentionally extinguishing the flicker of hope shared by those celebrating below. You see, as the Shakespearean tragedy unfolds, the impact of this playful truce would ripple through the pages of history, like too many cups of eggnog on New Year's Day. The major players may have concerned themselves more with the profit margins attached to a well-catered war than the significance of the humanity revealed on that fateful Christmas. Was the politicking of war a calculated tactic, or an outright betrayal of the soldiers' awakening to shared humanity? Did they think to ballot this moment in the history books? Or was it swept under the proverbial rug labelled military strategy? Fast forward a century, and those questions remain relevant. Today, we find ourselves grappling with similar dilemmas around the world. Politicians dancing around coalitions with the grace of folks awkwardly sashaying at a family wedding. So what do we take from this muddied holiday memory? Perhaps it's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, laughter, be it a shared joke or a duck-and-cover snowball, shines through, cutting through layers of human capacity to endure. Truce or trick? Ultimately, the soldiers who bravely kicked a ball across the snowy expanse shared more than just a gamesmanship. They sowed seeds of a future tapestry threaded with camaraderie. A strange and raucous comedy played out in war-torn mud. Proof that, as absurd as life may seem, it's always best lived with a bit of joy, even if it comes wrapped up in a bundle of grim realities. So may we all, in moments of strife, pull together our inner band of merry warriors, regardless of the trenches life throws our way. Imagine a Christmas carol echoing through the winter night, with a perfect blend of awkwardness. The men are singing from opposite trenches, creating a choir that could make angels jealous. But the irony, are they singing the same songs, or just trying to figure out who actually has the better tasting carols? with distant rifle shots sounding like a weird percussion section all around. They're harmonising in the most unlikely of settings. You might as well have a classic battle of the bands, one where every performance is punctuated by the occasional mortar shell and a few spitballs of snow. Now, picture the scene. On one side, you've got the British troops decked out in layers of soggy wool, crooning "Silent Night," their voices trembling against the cold, while on the other, the Germans bust out a surprisingly cheery rendition of "O Tannenbaum." It's the sort of spontaneous duet you wouldn't even find on a reality competition show. They're probably huddled together, bundled up against the elements, flipping through makeshift songbooks of whatever patriotic tunes they can remember. In a moment that feels stolen from a magical holiday film, as soldiers knock the frost off their boots and reach for that last dented tin of beans, the tension of war begins to melt. Who knew belting out jingle bells could replace artillery shells for a second? Sure, it's still war, but hey, for tonight, the only explosions are the bad notes. You might wonder if this is some sort of bizarre prank waiting to go wrong. Hey Carl, I bet they can't hold a note longer than 3 seconds. And with that, the German front responds with a raucous skipping of words, drowning out their own laughter. Courageously, you see a few of the braver souls wave white flags. Actually, they're more like torn pieces of old sheets, while somehow trying to communicate a universal message. We come in peace, but let's be real. Your song selection is trash. The soldiers are probably thinking, if we can't smoke 'em out, maybe we can outsing 'em. What a time to be alive, right? Except you're knee-deep in mud that looks like something straight out of a horror movie, with a lid on joy just barely held together by hats and frostbitten toes. At this point, singing out loud feels a little like screaming into the void, but oh, how joyful it is. And there's no hiding from the absurdity. Perhaps there's a weather-beaten sergeant hopelessly trying to be the angelic choir master, holding a tin can in the air. You can picture his defiant smile forming in the twilight while determinedly shouting, "Come on, you lot! Sing with your hearts, not your rifles!" Suddenly, in the midst of shared chuckles, the sound of crinkling candy wrappers might burst into focus. Someone found a stash of chocolate. The rations that were supposed to be for the long haul have turned into gold under the starry sky, their sweetness a reminder of home. Amidst harmonious crooning, the cheers are coupled with unexpected somberness. Soldiers take a moment to remember their families, homes and past Christmases spent around festive tables, and not in these frozen jungles of metal and despair. It's this singular moment of humanity rising above the cacophony of fear, a collective nod to life, love and laughter, however brief it may linger. It's a peculiar form of camaraderie that blooms between frostbitten fingers, spurred on by the shared yearning for peace. They aren't just soldiers anymore, they're singers, each proclaiming a call for truce in the most ridiculous way possible, putting the weight of war down temporarily. After all, wouldn't you prefer to curl up with a warm cocoa instead of clutching your rifle? So, as the last notes drift away into the cold night air, a spark ignites within these men, a reminder that perhaps, for as long as they're able to sing, they still possess the power of hope. Somewhere in the chill of warfare, laughter warms the heart, revealing that in moments of absurdness humanity prevails. Perhaps it's not just about who carries the sharpest bayonet, but who croons the loudest in the face of adversity. Just imagine the letters they send home afterward, recounting the magical evening when instead of bombs, they had ballads. That's the kind of historical absurdity we all secretly root for. A night when war songs were exchanged, laughter echoed down trenches, and for a little while peace felt like the prettiest melody sung on a winter's night. The celebration is over, and it's time to confront the battlefield hangover, mud, exhaustion, and possibly some uninvited friends named regret. What's left in the wake of your carolling is just another day of grim openness and the sacred stench of leftover rations. Can you survive? As you emerge from your makeshift blanket cocoon this fine December 26th, reality hits you like an ice-cold ration can drop from a sniper's perch. The taste of last night's celebratory schnapps still flickers at the back of your throat, while the squelching of mud beneath your boots echoes like regret itself. You blink against the fog of sleep, and just like that morning after feeling when your stomach lurches at the sight of the pizza box in the kitchen, you realise that the post-revelry clarity is a cruel mistress. The sounds of guns firing far off remind you that, yes, this is unfortunately not a whimsical holiday special. Those familiar roars of war are damn near singing their way back into your ears. As your best buddy Dave prompts you for the day's agenda, perhaps another snowball fight, you manage a weak grimace, wondering if it's ever too early for an existential crisis. Are those remnants of carolling camaraderie now digested alongside unanimously poor decision-making? It's not even a proper breakfast you're after. You'd trade a warm croissant for something more crucial, a moment of introspection among splattered mud and the unmistakable scent of despair that's become all too familiar. Meanwhile, Dave, still buzzing from his brief dalliance with a football and bathroom humour, suggests you start your day on a positive note. He wants you to step outside, a calibre of optimism only rivalled by severely questionable taste in food. Outside, the winter chill bites you harder than usual, perhaps out of spite for your ill-conceived merriment. The frozen ground, which moments ago felt like a snow-dusted paradise, has transformed into a squishier version of hell. You look around to see a peculiar mix of sombre and bewildered expressions on your fellow soldiers' faces. Some are trying valiantly to clean their boots, while others are huddled over their breakfast tins, squinting at the unsavoury contents as though it might suddenly transform into a gourmet feast at their command. Spoiler alert, it won't. Let's talk about breakfast then. Yes, the realisation hits you. Yesterday's leftover rations serve as today's lukewarm meal. Canned beans and unidentifiable meat that's left over from Oktoberfest, which, based on your calculations, could either be beef or possibly an old boot. The creative culinary possibilities of trench food are the stuff of legends, and your stomach is a wise critic unwilling to accompany you on this adventurous journey. You stare, perhaps imploring the tin can to burst forth with a savoury surprise, but it stays silent and as unimpressive as your decision to join the military. Through gritted teeth, you take a bite. It's a struggle against your very essence, a determination akin to powering through that last mile on a treadmill of shame. Yet, your mind races back to the good cheer of yesterday, the laughter, the singing, the mad dash for snowballs. Was it all just a dream? Perhaps a creative snowdrift manifesting through vivid imagination. The day trudges on, each hour dragging like the bottom of your backpack full of lame excuses and remnants of holiday spirit, dissolving faster than snowy memories. And as the remaining troops begin to unwind, talk of home emerges, the smell of roasted chestnuts, the sounds of laughter around the fire, grandmothers puffing up to remind you who's boss. It taps a yearning deep in your gut, the kind you could compare to a longing for clean socks or even a working toilet. Bless those modern amenities. Yet, amid dreary reflections, an unexpected warmth spreads through your heart. The camaraderie of yesterday isn't lost. Rather, it leads to surprising conversations about peace and the absurdity of war itself. A chuckle escapes your lips as forgotten jokes are retold, and a strange sense of hope springs forth, laughing like a child dodging shrapnel in a Christmas truce. As the day fades and the shadowy outlines of another evening begin their descent, you wonder if those carolling moments could ever be reprised. Can you bridge that gap between war and the unique joy of community over canned beans? Maybe through sheer absurdity, You can find meaning in the noise of the world flooded with threats. Find a rhythm embedded in the mud. If not, at least you have the opportunity to craft another mischief-worthy memory among cables of time and hilariously mudded resolve. So raise a tin can to that spirit filled with mud, laughter, and the promise of absurdity that comes alive even in trenches. As the year flips, how do the soldiers carry remnants of that joyful night into days filled with gun smoke? With fickle resolve and muddled expectations, these men weren't just soldiers. They were bizarre philosophers of survival, dabbling in organised chaos and heartfelt laughter. It's a curious clash, two worlds within one twisted existence. The brutality of war and the tenderness of a shared moment, where both sides dared to cross invisible lines for a fleeting spark of humanity. On one hand, you have men huddled in trenches, shivering against the cold while trading warm smiles and shivering souls. On the other hand, there's an impossible curdling resentment thickening the air, the awkward reality that those smiles were tinged with the notion of impending doom. The laughter from Christmas morning certainly rang out, echoing through no man's land, but now the lingering sound morphs into something more solemn. As the men shake off the remnants of their joyful interlude, they're left staring down a different barrel, one filled with hope, dashed against the harsh realities of ongoing warfare. It's like discovering a gourmet meal in the middle of a fast food drive-thru, intoxicating yet impossible to keep reordering. Picture the soldiers casually tossing a football between muddy foxholes, experiencing all the delight as if it were half-time at a friendly game, only to realise that time is indeed finite, much like the final minutes of a nail-biting match. These soldiers find themselves forging a worrying blend with reflective resolutions for the new year. Armed with resolutions that stem from a whole day of unexpected camaraderie, they're suddenly faced with the challenge of translating laughter into endurance. Will their New Year's resolutions involve more than polite whispers of, "I wish things were different"? What will it mean to carry the memory of a snowball fight into the next round of trench degradation? You might find one fellow solemnly muttering, "In 1915 I will definitely stop procrastinating on defeating my enemies," while other soldiers laugh, secretly rooting for him to actually accomplish it. But beyond the hopeful resolutions, there are reflective moments, the kind that hit harder than cannon fire. There's a palpable longing for peace, something fragile and volatile like fireworks on a battlefield. In hushed conversations under covered trenches, dreams emerge of returning home, not as war-torn ghosts but as restored souls. Perhaps one soldier scribbles a letter, detailing a long-lost promise to his mother that he'll finally marry and tend to the family farm. The irony is that he doesn't want those dreams turned into mirages. He wants to laugh with his future children more than he wants to dodge a bullet. Even as the gunpowder hangs thick in the air, hope becomes a currency that just might hold value. Brothers in arms reflect on what they chose to share that fateful Christmas and yearn for even more moments, like hot meals or visits to neighbourhood markets, tranquil pursuits that might be fundamental and terribly mundane. The fellowship crafted over plates of beans and hastily exchanged candies is more than a flimsy connection. It's tangible proof that kindness can exist in this absurdity called warfare. Yet as the days grow shorter and resolve weakens, the very nature of war reasserts itself with a chokehold. Resolving to be brave is one thing. Actually standing against the cries of battle, another. Yes, laughter has made way for fleeting hope, but then comes the clanking of boots in the mud, reminding them that fun evenings singing carols while watching snowflakes can only last so long. This mix of melancholy and determination, however, bends to one curious thought. The very humans that shared a laugh may find themselves directed against each other in madness. The lines not just on maps, but in the depths of their minds. With muddy boot prints leading back to old grudges, the soldiers wonder, will we ever return to that moment of joy? Are New Year's resolutions just fleeting whims of the hopeful, or something more profound? Psychology has a way of inching into soldiers' hearts, coaxing them to hold on to the fragments of that transitory time, urging them to break free from the shackles of empire and mortar. Now, as artillery thunders outside, like a cruel reminder of their current reality, the question remains, can goodwill persist? Will they find the audacity to keep the spirit of laughter alive beyond muddy practices of survival? Or will this new year bring more tears than triumphs and resolutions that await a new battlefield to uphold? In their hearts, thumping in unison, these men become snippets of the future, carrying echoes of laughter and mindful of the oddity that is human connection, waiting for tomorrow to reveal its surprise. Only time can tell if laughter reigns supreme, or if they'll simply embrace whatever life throws next. Cannon fire or snowball fights alike. As brave soldiers confront the horrors of war, can we believe that a shared experience forged deeper bonds? Just like spontaneous singing on Christmas, it's both wonderful and terribly fleeting. Are the bonds between them stronger than the fabric of war itself? As the muddy echoes of Christmas cheer fade into the distant sound of gunfire, you find yourself mulling over the friendships that sprouted under the unlikely circumstances of a ceasefire. These moments are indeed rare gems, like stumbling upon a £5 chocolate bar in a sea of MREs. But let's be honest, does bonding over nostalgia and snow-covered soccer matches hold up when you're neck-deep in the chaos of conflict? Picture the scene. Soldiers from both sides, once sworn enemies, laughing together and sharing chocolate, like kids trading cards in a playground. Or was it more like a very awkward family reunion, where the uninvited are asked to smile for the camera? With the scent of damp gunpowder hovering in the air, it's hard to believe that these men, who were just moments before taking aim at each other through the fog of battle, were now reminiscing about the warm joys of Christmas dinner. Their laughter feels almost surreal, like a warm hug on a chilly winter day, only to be swiftly followed by the icy wind of reality. After that sacred day of truce, as both sides return to their trenches, the camaraderie forged in those fleeting moments hangs heavy. Soldiers exchange glances that say, "Remember the snowball fight? Yeah, we could have been friends." In the fog of war, it's as if they momentarily slip the chains of conflict, just long enough to appreciate what could have been in another life. But would these bonds withstand the test of time and trauma? Or would they fade like the last echoes of carols on the winter breeze? Then comes the rude awakening, the sound of artillery ripping through the morning air, each pop reminding them that the supposed battlefield camaraderie is inherently unstable. You can almost hear the thoughts sizzling in their minds. Did I really bond with that guy? I remember him screaming at me last week. It's a mental tug of war where fierce allegiances clash with fleeting feelings of brotherhood. Are these men meant to become buddies over tetanus shots and tailgate parties? Or are they destined to be enemies who just shared a few laughable moments under the mistletoe? As days turn into weeks, and weeks into months, memories of the Christmas truce blend right into the trauma of battle. Shared chocolates and soccer may leave a lasting imprint in their hearts, but the realities of war lurk in the shadows like that last piece of fruitcake nobody wants to touch at the family gathering. The men go back to being wary of each other, mistrust once again ruling the day. Can you ever really forget the guy from the other trench who just tried to aim for your big toe, but also helped keep the enemy's target practice a bit less hostile for one blissful moment? Yet despite the inevitable reversion to hostility, there remains a flicker of hope. It's almost as if war has accidentally woven a thread of understanding through the fabric of their lives, trying to stitch together something beautiful from the unfortunate tapestry of combat. Life continues, and within this chaos, these soldiers find solace in those shared moments of laughter. They hold on to the belief that there's more to this existence than fighting for kings and country. Could there be a place for peace, formed not of treaties but of casual conversations held in mud pits? These experiences lay down the groundwork for future generations as memories of that unlikeliest of Christmases spread, transforming into stories told around campfires or in hushed tones in the barracks. The ethos begins to shift as these old soldiers become nostalgic troubadours, singing the praises of peace and brotherhood. In the backdrop of chaotic history, are they perhaps sowing seeds of empathy that others might eventually reap? Therein lies the absurdity of human connection. Even in the messiest trenches, real joy can sometimes emerge, cloaked in swirls of mud and snow. As you lay there, drifting off into your cosy bed, wouldn't it be delightful to think that these fleeting moments, however absurd, somehow paved the way for understanding and fellowship beyond the realm of war? Perhaps from that day forth, every carol sung harkens back to a crack of hope perched on snow-laden memory, a wish for harmony, if only for a day. History isn't just built upon blood and grit, but also by those transient, comical little gems when humanity reminds itself it's still capable of kindness, even when wearing muddy boots. After the guns quiet down, what became of the brotherhood forged that day? History begs for a touch of their lives. Did they become friends for life, or simply face hatred in their sobering tomorrow? The camaraderie of war, shall it remain just a blip on the canvas of chaos? In the aftermath of the 1914 Christmas Truce, you might imagine soldiers exchanging warm-hearted hugs, trading recipes for mud pie, and perhaps, dare we dream, discussing plans to start an artisanal candle-making business together. But alas, the reality is a bit more complicated, and significantly less cosy. Fast forward to the months and years following the truce, and you'll find yourself unravelling the tapestry of relationships that began in the mud of no man's land. As the war resumed, the battlefield became less a place of friendship and more a realm of calculated hostility. Those merry carolers who shared chocolates and kicked around that soccer ball, suddenly they were no longer friendly neighbours, but sworn enemies once more, trying to take down the very essence of each other with a barrage of gunfire, like an exceedingly tense high school reunion over the world's worst holiday dinner. Can you feel the awkwardness? Sure you can. The friendship fostered beneath the snowflakes and gunfire was almost beautiful, almost a fairy tale. But then reality crashed in like a clumsy German who accidentally swung a glass of schnapps at the wrong moment. The festively adorned trenches became a graveyard for those fragile bonds as war continued its relentless march across Europe. Remember that time you shared a smoke with Hans? Oh, the good old days of Christmas cheer? Reality check. You're now trying to shoot him, and Hans, he's quite keen on doing the same to you. Now, imagine the re-emergence of rations. Not the delicious chocolates of Christmas, but grim tins of sludgy mystery meat and cold beans. Let's put it this way. If relations had been strained before, the menu this time around was set to sow into the mud, with a side of sorrow. And when the smell of dinner wafts through the air, talk about festering resentment. Who knew canned beans could inspire more rage than artillery? Soon enough, the reality of returning to civilian life loomed. For some, those hazy memories of singing together by nighttime fires lingered like a perfume soaked in nostalgia. But for others, returning home meant facing the ghosts of those friendships buried under resentment and memories of war. You may find yourself asking, Did they speak of the truce when they returned home to families who had one-upped them on the breakfast table? While some greyed with laughter and camaraderie, others grew distant, shadows of that human connection haunted by memories of lost friends on the battlefield. As neighbouring villages resumed their mundane business, carts rolling on cobblestone streets, ladies gossiping in the squares, the fragments of brotherhood remained, bittersweet and far off. Some returned to share tender moments over tea, reminiscing about how close they came to exchanging snowmen instead of bullets, while others became trapped in cycles of division, ultimately choosing sides like it was a game of hide-and-seek. Did those Christmas carols become haunting memories, or tender reminders of humanity's fleeting moments? Post-war society was a paradox, and you can't help but feel for the heroes who caught glimpses of hope amid chaos. Some tried to communicate the values of peace and shared humanity, while others dug deeper into the trenches of prejudice and suspicion, as if their muddy battlegrounds were suddenly looming larger than their shared experiences. Stories were shared, but they were twisted even further, shaped into myth for younger generations who would learn about those peculiar soldiers who sang songs while shooting at each other. In cafes, museums and gatherings, remnants of their camaraderie lingered, carried like an old secret that could either ignite friendship or cast shadows over future dealings. They became living monuments to that unique moment, a lesson, a warning, and an echo of what it meant to be human amidst the inhumanity of war. So, next time you listen to Christmas tunes under twinkling lights, consider those soldiers lingering in the background of history, yearning for the sound of carols and camaraderie rather than the thunder of cannons. Their brotherhood might not last, but their brief escape from the cruelty of humanity offered a bright, albeit fleeting, glimmer of hope, a hopeful spark that never truly fades. Can we say that the bond created that day influenced subsequent global conflicts? The seeds of hope have to permeate through chaos. History never forgets, but what if it could only learn from confusion and laughter buried in the past? Imagine an alternate universe where every soldier who shared a laugh or a soccer game during that Christmas truce carried that warmth into future battles. Perhaps World War II would have been fought with tea and biscuits rather than bombers and bases. It's a whimsical thought, isn't it? But this is humanity we're talking about. A species that somehow manages to blend joy and chaos like an unholy mix of fruitcake and hand grenades. Picture it. Leaders of nations, utterly baffled by the unexpected camaraderie their troops experienced that frosty December morning. Could they have looked back and thought, hey, maybe a little goodwill goes a long way? But instead, the world plunged headfirst into even darker depths, only to emerge gladiator-style decades later, ready to fight again. If only a few more soldiers had traded tea over grenades, they might have redefined diplomacy as we know it. Because let's be real, what's a better way to settle disputes than by passing the cocoa and kicking a football around? As the years rolled on, did those cold winter memories whisper through the halls of history, echoing the heartbeats of men? Was it possible those moments of shared laughter stayed suspended in their minds as a gentle reminder that beneath uniforms and medals beat the heart of a fellow human? Yet, blood was shed, and alliances formed, turning friends into foes faster than you could say, oops. Fast forward to the cold trenches of World War II, where society found itself entrenched once more in chaos. Did the warmth of that holiday truce shimmer overhead like a forgotten star? Did soldiers from the opposing sides catch a glimpse of their mutual humanity, or did the heavy haze of war blot it out? The consequences of those early days teetered on fragile edges. Tribal grudge matches where the only currency was vengeance, and the only solace found in bitter rattling sabres. Ah, but history can be a tricky math teacher, can't it? each equation of conflict adds up to lessons learned, though sadly some folks fail to attend class. One could argue that the fleeting moments of truce during the Great War served as astute reminders, lost within the shuffle of boots marching forward. And yet, every single soldier held a piece of that laughter like a secret, a flickering match in a windstorm of hate. Only instead of setting fire to departments of diplomacy, they inflicted wounds of resentment and emptied their arsenals. The ever-complex web of conflict continued weaving throughout the 20th century, with the Vietnam War, the Gulf Wars, and various skirmishes that boggled the mind. Did the voices of those singing men resonate in the air over jungles and deserts, advising, "Please, have a heart," or had they become mere spectres of memories barely audible over the cacophony of grenade explosions and shouts? History tends to get messy, like an ill-timed food fight at a royal banquet. However, even amid tragedy, glimmers of that Christmas spirit sparkled within dark days. Activists emerged, fueled by the idea that peace is not merely the absence of conflict, but rather the presence of collective understanding and compassion. The examples of the Christmas Truce inspired movements for peace, planting seeds in minds throughout the world that can blossom into flowers of humanity, even in otherwise barren, war-torn lands. Can we truly say we've covered all ground? Maybe not. But those silly ideals planted long ago sometimes sprouted into unexpected resolutions, with people gathering to heal instead of hurt. Perhaps the soldiers that played football and sang together were making a larger impact than they realised. Yes, the shocks of history often dull the senses, but those holiday memories acted like a torch, illuminating paths not just for soldiers, but for politicians, activists, and ordinary folk alike. Imagine future generations learning about that truce and campaigning for compassion. Just your average lawn sign proclaiming "Let's hug it out" in place of heavy artillery. The irony remains sweet, isn't it? After all the bloodshed, a simple football match became a cherished echo, a recurring hope in an otherwise chaotic symphony. With each generation grappling for peace whilst dealing with humanity's incessant penchant for warfare, wouldn't it be something if they all learned from that frosty moment in trenches long past? So, let's raise a mug of cocoa, soak in the warmth of the absurdity, and suffer through history's never-ending loop of calamity with a wry smile. For somewhere within that muddled timeline rests the hope for humanity. Isn't that just deliciously ironic? Who in the world doesn't need a good laugh, especially in times of global crisis? It's about time we remember that sometimes, amid mud and misery, the most beautiful byproduct can merely be shared laughter. Who are the ghosts of Christmas past walking through those frost-bitten fields of battle? Stories that perhaps haunt some present and hollow out others. Stars guided by laughter and friendship, but eclipsed by the rumble of war as they floated to eternity. As the sun dipped below the horizon of 1914, a supernatural chill draped itself over the trenches, taking hold of every soldier's breath. It became a night riddled with echoes, whispers of laughter mixed with the distant boom of cannons, each sound a reminder that a fleeting moment of peace existed, even if it felt just like a dream between bursts of shouting. Underneath that biting wind, brave souls, gathering around improvised fires, were trading stories like festive currency, sharing tales of camaraderie as if over a holiday feast. If only a fraction of those stories made it back through the fog of time, perhaps we'd all believe in ghosts. The tales kicked off with remnants of last holiday seasons. A Christmas tree decorated with rusted tin ornaments, socks filled not with coal, but remnants of care from loved ones. Imagine young Thomas, a wide-eyed private, spinning in delight as he talks about his childhood, recounting how his mother once tried to pass off dried fruit as holiday cheer. It's hard to think of a more touching gift than a handful of shriveled apricots, leaving him eternally thankful for the warmth of food, if only for a few moments. But those around him are no less imaginative. "You know," says Sergeant Jenkins, scratching his chin in wild contemplation, "I once heard that if you hang a potato on the tree, it keeps the spirits of your ancestors happy." The laughter rises like steam, and in that flutter of joy for a brief span the horrors fade away. You can almost see the shadows shift, these same ghosts sharing in the joy, celebrating the absurdity of necessity in the bleakest of winters. As the night deepens, stories meander like ghostly figures through the trenches. They blend the humorous with the haunting, the resilience of life in wartime stitched together with the melancholy fabric of loss. One soldier recalls a college friend who once danced in tutus at a Christmas pageant, only to trade pirouettes for trench foot. An odd nostalgia settles over the group as they imagine this friend drifting through time, trying to dodge bullets in ballet movements. Who knew the theatre of war could also witness the choreography of inappropriate footwear? But lurking deeper, beyond the humorous exchanges, lies the unspeakable sorrow. The soldiers can't reminisce without confronting the spectres of their fallen comrades. Jake, a man barely of age, quiets the room as he recalls the friend he lost at the very outset of the war, a spirit now wandering through the no-man's land, ever haunted by laughter. In a bittersweet twist, they share a drink in his memory, raising whatever rations they could scrounge from the muck. "To Charlie," they chorus weakly, their silent resignation dissolving into snowflakes, a reminder that for each joyful moment a haunting shadow lies. Hope is a heavy burden, often carried on the shoulders of those with dreams of returning home. "If I make it out of this," whispers Harry, summoning audacity amid dread, "I'll never complain about my mother's pudding again." The others chuckle, knowing that they would do anything for one more taste of home, even if it was wrapped around an ill-prepared pie filled with questionable frugality. Snickers ripple through the air, hearts alight amidst winter's chill, laughter proving an unlikely salve against wretchedness, just enough to coat their fears like a layer of fresh snow. As dawn's light timidly breaks, so too do these festive ghosts fade into memory, blending seamlessly into the dawn chorus. It's back to grim realities as soldiers reluctantly don their uniforms, swapping anecdotes for the expeditious clinking of weaponry, where the festive spirit intertwines with the routine of war. Yet for a short while, those ghostly figures shared the comfort of warmth, laughter, and a human connection too easily extinguished in the horrors of battle. Amidst the battle-scarred memories on bleak fields, the legends of that Christmas truce became a soft whisper of hope, a vivid reminder of what bonds us all. Perhaps, just maybe, the ghosts of Christmas past return each holiday season, not to haunt but to illuminate the beauty of camaraderie, compassion, and humanity's ability to rise and laugh, even beneath the weight of sorrow. And thus, the resilience of these men became their everlasting legacy, a blend of joy and melancholy echoing through the ages, reminding us all to cherish moments of peace amid life's chaotic battleground. As modern times stretch the veil of history, how has art responded to the absurdity of that day? Songs, poetry, and art, emerging lifelines to memorialize a time when laughter pierced through the darkness. Are these imaginative strokes simply ways to amplify echoes from a snowy battlefield? If you think back to those freezing trenches, the sight of soldiers swapping chocolates and singing carols was a flicker of hope amidst the murky despair of World War I. That thin veneer of humanity invites creative expression several generations later, where artists reflect on the absurd juxtaposition of war and peace with a mix of wistfulness and irony. Just picture it. Modern musicians gathering in dimly lit pubs, strumming their guitars and belting out ballads that tell tales of brave souls who dared to hope, if only for a day. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to hear a contemporary songwriter lamenting over that brief truce, one in which soldiers traded not just food but also dreams? The lyrics would likely jab playfully at the fact that some of the fiercest opponents were literally kicking a soccer ball around instead of shooting at each other. Those cheeky lines could be more potent than a soldier's last round of ammo. Then there's poetry, that ever-tender embrace of language. If there's ever been a profound narrative birthed from the chaos of war, it would be those penned by poets reflecting on that magical, fleeting moment in December. One might imagine them, quills in hand, furiously scratching out verses, pondering how the miracle of a shared smile and festive cheer could unfurl even in a hellscape. Roses of war can bloom over fields so bleak, they write, hardly able to digest the irony but revelling in its beauty nonetheless. Poets channel these memories into sonnets, capturing the laughter that emerged amidst the gunfire, the sheer absurdity that turned enemies into friends, all over a game of soccer and a shared round of biscuits. Meanwhile, visual artists conjure their renditions of that strange day, merging their brushstrokes with history and surreal interpretations. You could almost see their canvases, vibrant and richly coloured, depicting the clashing of uniforms represented in shadowy darkness on one side, and joyful celebration in swift, bright strokes on the other. Picture the depiction of two men, one in khakis, the other in grey, arms outstretched in a comical truce as snowflakes gently hit their grateful heads, transforming them from warriors into theatre actors playing parts in a whimsical war comedy. Talk about turning trench warfare into a stage play. Speaking of performances, have you ever considered the wave of theatrical interpretations that flourished in the wake of this astonishing story? Modern playwrights craft heartwarming narratives that capture the raw emotion of that Christmas Day truce. Imagine actors on a stage exchanging jokes and giggles, dressed in period garb, while the audience rushes to laugh or gasp as a complex tapestry of human spirit unveils before their eyes. It's a delightful collision of hysteria and profundity, a potent reminder that even in darkest times, the human heart seeks joy and connection. Let's not overlook the very idea that all these creative efforts have a tendency to overlap. Musicians performing emotive ballads can morph their songs into lively theatricals. Visual artists working with light and shadow can provide backdrops for dramatic scenes. You can even envision a gallery filled with paintings and art installations memorializing that fabled Christmas, interspersed with song and dance. Perhaps someone in the audience jumps up on stage with a tambourine, also eager to share their version of the story, transforming the setting into a true celebration of unity, born from mischief and delight amidst chaos. So how do these art forms weave together such a powerful narrative in the face of destruction? Quite simply, they shine a light on the incredible resilience of humanity. When faced with absurdity and violence, the human spirit not only survives but creates. Each song strummed, every verse committed to paper, and each brushstroke transcends the horrors of war, transforming grief into something altogether extraordinary. As we reflect on that bittersweet moment of joy, entwined in tragedy, let's appreciate the art that emerged, a kind of creative revival that continues to resonate. Those shared laughs amidst chilling winds remind us that while battle cries may echo, it's the glimmers of laughter and kinship that will truly outlast the clamour of war, and the beauty of that Christmas truce is immortalised in songs, poetry and art. So tonight, while you drift off to sleep, let your dreams dance with the whimsical but profound moments, where humanity springs forth even in places you least expect, like a single snowdrop breaking through the frost. With every turn of page in history wrapped up in the blanket of truce, the profound lessons beckon for reflection. Will societies evolve from these moments, or are they doomed to repeat? Here lies the paradox of humanity, shaky and hopeful, grappling with every joy it can find. Imagine a time when men, muddy and weary from the trenches, relinquish the weight of their weapons to kick around a soccer ball, their laughter piercing the winter chill like a sleek arrow through an overstuffed turkey. In those fleeting moments of unity, it's almost as if the universe paused, saying, "Hold on, maybe we aren't so different after all." But what happens when the last snowball is thrown and the revelry fades into the echoes of cannon fire? The aftermath of the Christmas Truce poses a crucial question. Does a slap on the back with a muddy hand lead to lasting peace? Or is it a mere mirage, one that flickers like a string of holiday lights left untended in the storm? The reality is that the war resumed fairly quickly, the sombre music of conflict slipping back into the chorus of life as if it never left. The camaraderie might have warmed their hearts, but the chill of reality surely set back in. It's a tragically amusing twist. During a brief interlude, these soldiers experience something akin to friendship, only to revert to enemies over the petty politics of their superiors. But therein lies the lesson. Don't dismiss the importance of that moment. From the muddy trenches of Belgium arose a flicker of human resilience. The shared laughter, the homemade chocolates, the recognition of shared burdens. They found hope, one hoarse carol at a time. And if hope can spring forth in the most unlikely circumstances, what does that suggest for us today? Consider how moments like these are stitched into the intricate tapestry of time. What if more people sought out common ground during tumultuous times? What if instead of shouting insults across battle lines, we crossed them with a friendly wave? Yes, it sounds almost hopelessly optimistic amidst the politics of our day, like suggesting we host a group painting session with our neighbourhood raccoons to swap artistic techniques. However ridiculous the message remains, connection can blossom amid conflict. As seasoned as we may feel, we can still learn from those worn-out soldiers who dared to momentarily rest from their hostilities. Reflecting on the lessons from the trenches reminds us that the barriers we construct, physical, emotional or otherwise, are often made of the flimsiest of materials, like determination wrapped in the marshmallow fluff. Those men shared a moment that demonstrated the power of laughter amidst misery and the unbreakable bonds formed by shared humanity. The echoes of that truce reach out to modern societies grappling with division. In an age where unity seems just out of reach, one wonders, how do we rebuild bridges? Perhaps hearkening back to that snowy field in 1914 provides a guide, finding time to listen, to engage, to laugh even when the going gets tough. Could a moment spent connecting over our differences lead to broader change? In today's scrolling world, we often miss the spark of true connection, favouring the convenience of emoji over empathy. Think of the last time you had a genuine conversation with someone who had an opposing view. Did you find commonality or merely reinforce the us versus them mentality built over years of grievance? Our ancestors in the trenches, albeit begrudgingly, showed us that empathy can emerge in the most unlikely moments. Never underestimate the power of a simple gesture, a smile, a shared joke, or even a tin of dodgy beans at a critical moment. That can alter the course of history. As you nestle deeper into your warm beds tonight, allow a quiet moment of gratitude to wash over you. Remember those soldiers who paused their duties to momentarily embrace humanity. Let their fleeting truce resonate, a gentle reminder that, in a world filled with strife, glimmers of hope are still worth seeking out, even if they come wrapped neatly in muddy boots and frigid air. After all, If we can find kinship amidst chaos, perhaps we're one step away from a playful truce of our own. So, let's open our hearts to possibility. With courage and connection, who knows? We might just turn the tide towards lasting peace, inspired by those brave souls who dared to sing together across no man's land, giving hope a chance to thrive once more. After all contemplation, are we not at the core of these heroic tales aiming for a greater message? The plea for universal understanding and coexistence rests in our awkward and humorous history. As you drift into sleep, remember, beneath the chaos, there lies hope. The shared laughter of men singing Christmas carols in the trenches of war. Imagine those brave souls huddled in their muddy confines, some clutching rationed tins of beans, while others gravitated toward the fleeting joy of music. There's an imagery where survival becomes a joint effort, as if fighting a war takes a back seat to a moment of unity that was about as reliable as the weather in a British winter. So, let's picture that crisp December evening when the air was laden with the scent of gunpowder and nostalgia, a cocktail neither of which anyone wanted to drink. These men, previously seen only as targets, now transformed into comrades over the sentimental strains of Silent Night. Can you see it? The British soldiers peeking cautiously over muddy parapets, evidence of the long, arduous months of war evident in every furrowed brow. And yet, as carols spilled from their lips, a delightful absurdity unfolded. Fellow soldiers, who only minutes earlier would have aimed rifles at each other, now exchanged not just pleasantries but treaties on who had the superior pudding recipe. You'd think it was a Christmas baking show rather than a battlefield, each singing soldier grasping at any semblance of home. One can't help but wonder about the political ramifications of such a truce. Did higher-ups scratch their heads, perplexed not only by the sudden unity of their troops, but by the glaring absence of bullets flying? What was their response to men behaving less like enemies and more like attendees of a chaotic festive gathering? Was there panic in the heavens as generals wondered if such a thing was too sentimental for wartime? In an era of strict discipline and chained-down camaraderie, what do you do when the men you ordered to kill are suddenly sharing chocolate? It creates a tangled web of reflections, doesn't it? As soldiers exchanged gifts and moments of genuine joy, the unlikelihood of a harmonious truce unravelled critical ideas about humanity. The complex dance of conflict and ceasefire, which has played out since the dawn of mankind. Two parties trying desperately to draw lines, but habitually finding themselves crossing over to play with the other side instead. The humour in it, so potent. It begs the question, why can't those moments of connection outlast the inevitable chaos life often throws our way? More than a century later, the Christmas Truce has become a symbol, a beacon for all of us, as we tread through our own sanctuaries of silence. Are we not simply humans desperately reaching toward connection amidst our mundane battlegrounds? Whether it's a family dinner splattered with awkward silences, or a workplace quarrel turned lively debate over the best holiday movie, it feels as though the essence of this event still bubbles to the surface of our social interactions today. After all, can't we skip away from our incessant squabbles to partake in the communal experience of hot cocoa or a raucous round of karaoke just one night a year? A shared laugh, a slice of pie, and the ability to forgive transgressions, those are the things that bind us in fraternity. The men during those curated moments of pseudo-peace became exemplars of countenance and utter absurdity. They proved that even in the darkest of times, our humanity remains resilient, even whimsical, an untamed spirit that rebels against fear and strife. Ultimately, this intimate glimpse into the battlefield during that long-ago Christmas leads us to recognise a timeless truth that echoes across the years. The willingness to connect through laughter transcends rivalry, and perhaps that's the most precious lesson we could carry forward. The notion of reaching out, even from behind sandbags and barricaded walls, to discover that our shared experiences are strikingly similar, regardless of our flags or factions. As you sink deeper into relaxation tonight, let that lesson settle over you like a warm blanket. In the tapestry of history, among the chaotic narratives of our shared past, lies this sparkling thread of hope and humour. Life's battlefields can be transformed into places of understanding, even if for just one glorious night. And as you drift into your restful slumber, remember that you, too, hold the power to create your own moments of peace, laughter, and cooperation, no matter how chaotic the world may appear.